Hello, welcome to the show. Lovely Tuesday evening, rainy Tuesday. You know, we've been waiting for the rain. Finally, the rains are here. I'm excited about that. Thank you for staying with Pan African TV. Sorry for the late start in the show. Now, last week, if you watched the show, last week we had a I can't find the word, but I was going to say a long conversation about you, but I realized it wasn't that long. But we had a conversation last week about rape, you know, where we spoke about specific things, rape culture in Ghana, other issues that came up from that conversation. Now, there was one very important thing that show could not cover, and that is your views, you know, as viewers on the issue. Now, if it's about a culture, then it's about us, you and me, all of us. And the essence of both shows has been that we have one big conversation and see our way clear. And so we really need to hear from you. So pardon us that last week when we repeated this topic, we were unable to tackle your views and take questions and sort of try to bring some finality, if possible, to the issues. That's what this show is about. So please do well to grab your phone quickly, send in your questions or your comments to the text and WhatsApp line that is in front of the screen. We will also open the phone lines pretty shortly so that you can actually call in and join the conversation actually like with your voice. Let our voices count. So thank you once again. Good evening. Welcome to the couch. My name is Ama Pratt. Now this evening I will be doing this with the same crew that did it last week. That got them to smile. Oh, I'm not smiling. Try,
yeah.
lawyer.
Yeah.
So, of course, we have lawyer Alifo.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. And then, of course, we have Yaw Djin from last week. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you. I don't take it for granted that on a rainy day like this, you've taken time to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks you for having us.
Yeah. Any fallouts from our conversation last week? This is all it is today. It's just a conversation. So you see, I didn't bring any paper, nothing. Let's have a conversation. Are there any fallouts? Are there any issues we did not, you know, sort of, you think we could go back on?
Well, I think we didn't touch enough, I feel, on some aspects. Like, I think we brought up a question earlier on, and that was last week, regarding the key points along the line that a rape victim tends to go and what the challenges might be. Now, I didn't touch on it then because I feel like it's really widely varied. It's not necessarily like, oh, you know, the police attitude is a problem but the truth of the matter is I don't think we put enough emphasis on the fact that somebody has been raped, the kind of trauma they're going through. People need to be trained to be able to actually serve the purpose of, you know, creating a safe zone, a safe space for them to really be able to report. So we talked about the fact that before they even get to that point, whether it's seeing a police or seeing a doctor or a gynae, they feel uncomfortable because their social circles makes them feel like it's better to just keep quiet about it. However, I think we don't do enough as far as, and I think, lawyer, you can help me out on this one, that when they go to the police, the police, it depends on who it is. If the person is sympathetic, they are sympathetic. If they are not, they might ask questions like, but why did you go there? What were you wearing?
It's interesting that you say that, Yaw, because earlier this week, what do I mean? Yesterday, I was reading an article online, one of these articles that pops up, you know, on your feed every now and then, and it had to do with a serial rapist. And the fact
in
that...
In Ghana?
No, not here, in the US. The fact that years, say 3 or 4 years earlier, a woman had reported him, but she had sort of withdrawn the case because of police. The word they used was skepticism. Give me the word well.
Skepticism.
Thank you. I struggle with it a lot. I think I have a lips. But
police skepticism.
Because of that, she withdrew the case. And so this guy went on to rape several other women. But that police, by his little, you know, and these things we call them small little, maybe just a little comment he passed, just a little, you know, attitude he gave her, she felt uncomfortable to go ahead with the case. But if he hadn't been so skeptical about her story, perhaps
exactly
that would have been the end of that, you know.
Absolutely. And so it goes beyond just the standard you're a police officer, this is your job. You have to actually recognize the fact that this is a rape case. There's a certain sensibility that's required, and this is something that it's not just police. Again, I don't want to just pick on the police, but across the whole service line. Like if you talk about, for example, the gynecologist. Now, I told you before, I had a friend who had been raped, and I actually went with her to the hospital, and the attitude the gynae had, you could tell it was almost like, this small girl, so you are sexually active. There's this prejudice, you get it. So the person might not, and at some point she called me and asked me whether she should even continue the process because she felt uncomfortable. She felt as though she was being judged, even though she was a victim. And you're going through so much emotions. And I feel like people don't, you're just going along your normal, and it's, you should be tough, this one is normal. That's the problem. No, I mean, when it comes to rape, we need to do a lot more, both in educating people in general about the culture, because there's so much onus on the woman that, you should somehow protect yourself. I mean, even if I think one of the previous gender ministers was even talking about how women dress. Now, this wasn't targeted at the women who were raped. It's a broadcast thing. So what happens is the men are listening and are thinking, well, if she doesn't dress the correct way, then and so... I
mean, it's not my fault.
It's not my fault. Even the gender minister was talking about
dressing. I get tempted.
Exactly. And the gender minister said, dress better. So, I'm but human. And that also brings me to the other factor, which is the fact that there's this nonsense about it being not their fault. They can't control themselves. And one of the things that especially people like to touch on nowadays is, it's as though people are bringing some kind of westernized dressing. And I said, go back to old pictures, early 20th century, before that. You realize that a lot of the women were bare-chested. Even if you go to some areas in Accra, you notice that some of our grandmothers still like to sit around, So the idea is, dressing is not necessarily because we've changed the culture. Before that time, how were we dealing with rape? We probably had a lot of systems in place. We had, and the idea is, I don't think because people are going around bare-chested, people are just raping people left, right, center. You get it? So a lot of the justification that if a woman, wears mini skirt or she wears this or wears that, then somehow she's asking for it.
Somehow she's asking for it. Now, again, interesting that you say that, because there's this very nice phrase that I really like. This thing in the Bible, I've forgotten the exact quotation, but it has to do with temptation, about fleeing temptation, about being flesh and blood. And you see, we missed the point. It's a warning to us that don't go thinking you are not human. So you know that you are a human being, and so you are susceptible. It's not a justification. Like, there's a difference. It's not to say that if he did it, then it's because he's not human. It's like you, the person in that situation, appreciate the fact that, I don't know if I'm making sense.
That
it's not reactionary.
You've got weaknesses, It's proactive, preemptive, yes. Exactly. But I think even I want to go further and say that...
I to be coming.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. You see, I don't know how much these things play into, especially when it comes to the law, the way the law deals with these matters. I don't know how these things come into it because I don't come across this kind of argument too often. Of course, when you make a report to the police, they have to investigate. The whole issue about investigation is to ask questions, you understand? And then look at the circumstances, whatever happened and when did it happen, what happened and all of that. So, of course, in the process of questioning, interrogating the victim, perhaps these issues may come up.
But what did you put on?
I'm not saying it's right.
You would accept that there's a way you answer a question that might carry meaning
I know.
You may or may not intend to carry.
Yeah, you see,
I could ask you the same question and you feel comfortable. I could ask you the same question and
I agree perfectly.
You want to flee.
I agree perfectly. I'm saying that, you see, I am not too sure, especially I don't know if these things are even documented. I'm not too sure how much the things you are complaining about, how much they play in the whole process of prosecuting suspects and all of that. What I know is that, like I've said, I told you, many of these cases, when they come up, the suspects get convicted. Yes. Many of them. In fact, I dare say almost all of them, they get convicted. Which means that once these matters get to the court, I believe that. In fact, sometimes because I'm a defense attorney, I do. If I
You're on the
think
other
that-
side.
Yes, I even think that. I even think that sometimes
You're on the other
they are,
side.
Yeah, they are just too sweeping. They don't even analyze the. But of course, they have to take the. I have said that. Look, when two people are behind closed doors, you know, and sometimes they may even agree, and then along the line, one person says, "I don't want it," or maybe the person is demanding something from the other person, and because the person didn't provide it, he may turn around and say, "Well, I didn't consent to the act, and he forced me," and all of that. So of course, they have to clearly analyze all the circumstances, listen to all the parties before they prepare a docket against the suspect. That is it.
I understand, but I think in the investigation itself, the way they ask, that's where I feel you're providing a service as a policeman. And I think, I don't know whether it goes back to our, earlier, the first coup or the coups in general, and how our police seem to act almost military-like, from their uniform, from the way they behave. And so I feel like there has to be a real shift, a real education, because if you go to other countries, you realize that there's a very big difference between the police and the military in the way they relate to civilians.
You see, you know what, much as I agree with what you are saying, I believe that you are assuming, not you in particular, people who take this line of, I believe that you assume a lot of things that do not actually happen, because
they happen.
I don't know how
They do
many
happen.
well,
That's why I started with a caveat that it's not necessarily that they behave badly.
Yes.
I was saying it's more of the fact that it's dependent on the individual's prejudice.
Have you sat through any investigation of these matters to
but like
come
she
to that
mentioned, you
conclusion?
can ask a question.
These are issues that because of the culture, we think that this is what happens.
No. People always withdraw cases like
exactly.
that.
And we agreed with that last week.
People never go the full haul.
Yes, but I'm saying that when they don't, it is not because of the way they are questioning them. Not necessarily. I do agree that some of these things do okay. But you also know that people living in the communities even try to intervene when these matters come up.
That is true.
Even sometimes they even go and talk to the chiefs. You know about the chiefs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the chiefs.
My experience is urban. So it's people who are living in Accra. So there's not necessarily like the chiefs. In fact, some of them don't even go as far as family, because the person, it might not want the parents to even know about it. But the fact of the matter is the person would go through going to the police, going to the gynae. But then, you see, I feel this subcultural prejudice, and I say subculture as opposed to culture, because I don't think it's necessarily a Ghanaian thing. Yeah. It's something about just the way people view women and sexuality.
Yeah.
And so I feel like depending on who is doing the interrogation, that prejudice comes through. And I feel like there has to be work done on the service providers, here being the police, the doctors, and whoever else you have along that chain, just so that you realize that when you're dealing with a rape case, you have to go above in terms of being sensitive. Because the person may be lying, the person may be telling the truth, but it doesn't matter. This is an allegation. They have to go through it with a certain sensibility, because the person might be traumatized.
I agree. Just that I still have difficulty that these matters are not sorted out properly, because like I think that, like I've said, many of these cases, once they are reported, the police, I think well, of course, I don't know I don't have the statistics to know
the person might withdraw their case.
Well, if they do, and if I don't have the statistics, if I don't know the facts and all, it will be difficult to tell under what circumstances they withdrew those matters. But for the ones that come up to court, you see, unless you are saying that even the kind of cross-examinations that lawyers do in court, or even if judges
it might not even get as far as court.
Yes.
So it might just be the initial point of...
And you see, I agree with what lawyer is saying, and that actually helps the point that we are making. Because those that go the full haul, they do get prosecution.
Yes.
But then a chunk do not go that far. So my concern is, what's preventing the ones that are not going that far?
Yeah, so that is what we are trying to
and it brings up this very important issue of police interrogation.
As just an example, because even the doctors themselves, sometimes they have and I've sat in that one before. I've sat there.
You see, if the police do what you are saying,
and doctors as well, the doctors who do the
except that I'm saying that for the police they have to investigate, so some of those things may come up. I don't think those things should necessarily stall the cases. But if you, I don't know very much about those things, but if they do okay,
Yes.
I agree that
No, it's
we have to
sensitivity
sensitize.
training. It's
Yes,
sensitivity training.
Yeah, I agree that
Because
we have
let's take the, let me give a practical example. Let's take the instance of, the one that I was referring to last week, where this lady was actually dating the guy. That was her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And they sort of broken up.
Yeah.
She says they've broken up. He says, no, we are still in a relationship. I will not break up with you. And so they end up somewhere together where they are meant to have a conversation. Somehow it gets heated, there are emotions involved. And so they can't, because it's a public space. And so he says to her, I mean, you are crying and all. We can't be sitting here being so dramatic. Let's move somewhere quiet.
Yeah.
And it's a school setup. So her hostel is really close. Like, okay, let's go to yours and have a conversation. And there he rapes her. So now her question is, can this be classified as rape? Because I willingly went with him to my hostel. I opened my door and let him in. It's not as if I haven't been intimate with this human being before. I have. And so in a sensitive case like this, where she herself has all these self-doubts and questions, how do you feel it plays out if she now goes to the police station to report and somebody is coming at her like,
Why did you go to his place?
How did you...
But that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be investigation, because I'm also seeing a line of argument that it says that as soon as ladies say that they are raped, That is it. That's the end. I don't think that
see
we...
that problem,
that is what I'm sensing. The discussion from last week till now, it's like when ladies say they are raped, it means they are raped.
Oh, no.
And
But I have on the side of caution.
And you see, I told you already that... Yes,
caution.
but you see, I told you also that the term rape, the act of raping, is a creature of the law. It is a law that describes a certain act as rape. You see, so the law sets standards.
Right.
You see, so they have to move through those standards and see whether then we call them the elements, things that have to be proven. You have to find out if those things have actually occurred. If they have not occurred, then it is not enough for one person to say that I was raped.
That actually segues into my other second point, which was the concern about the fact that I believe laws, it might be a creature of the law, but I believe the law itself is also organic, in the sense that I don't know whether there is enough to actually, and that's also about the matter of reporting, in terms of if we create a condition where people, a lot of cases, and I believe this one, there's a statistic about it, a lot of situations, I think they say 2 in 5 women have had some sexual situation. I think it might even be higher because a lot of them don't report. Now, why they don't report? Now, if you have a situation where a lot more women are reporting rape cases because the situation, the safe space has been created for them to do so, you'll find, and a lot more activism is pushing the law to do what it's supposed to. You'll notice that, and the voice of the woman is actually, shall I say,
let's say the voice of society.
The voice of victims is actually influencing the laws. You realize that the laws will not necessarily change, but they're procedures. I'm not saying that it should be the man is guilty automatically. But you notice that when you start on this, are you sure? There's a way you can go about it which just cowers the victim.
So you're asking a very specific type of activism.
Not just activism, but in terms of the attitude society.
Where victims come out and tell their stories. What they actually went through. So the rest of us can sort of pick from that.
I say the conversation about rape in general. Because the voices of the victims is a small percentage of the conversation. You would have a very cold law and cold procedure that ignores...
Because it won't be practical.
It won't be practical.
It won't be realistic.
So you scare away a lot of people.
But last week I dealt with this issue and I said that the law, the written law is simple. But the written law is developed by the courts when the matters go to court, and especially when they get appealed, when they go to High Court, Court of Appeal, and Supreme Court. They shape the law. They make the law better.
Precedent.
Yes, because then they deal with the facts. They try to apply the law to the facts that have come to them. And in doing that, they develop the law, because the decision of the higher courts are also law. So the written law may just be a couple of sentences, because they will not talk about all these facts, all these circumstances. But when these matters come up and they go to Court of Appeal, High Court, Supreme Court, they make pronouncements, and then they fit in these facts, and then they become law that when you act in this particular way, although it is not stated clearly like that. And that's why I said that the reason why the rape law is not developing very well is because these matters don't even get up to...
Exactly.
Yes,
So,
because it's only the small guys that are convicted at the very lower level, district court and circuit court, they never get appealed, and that's the end of it. And so
when you mentioned...
Sorry.
No, absolutely.
I want us to bring in the viewers quickly. Somebody has sent it. This one says, good evening, Ama. How would a court differentiate between a set-up rape and a deliberate rape? His name is Andy Avoka in the Volta region.
Yes. So if I understand what he's saying by set-up rape is the one that perhaps the lady has made up. It was not a rape, the lady tries to, yes. So that is why I talk about the circumstances. That's where they have to look at the circumstances. You have to tell your story. The police has to investigate. And so if you remember the last time we said that if, for instance, if the door, if the man takes you to the room and the door is locked, and then you tell the man, no, you don't want it. And then later on you allow the man to do whatever, you don't say anything, and perhaps you even contribute somehow, or you just, and you never attempted to even open the door, because then you go to court and say, oh, I knew the door was locked when we entered, and so I didn't even attempt to even... These things will be looked at properly. A judge, and the judges may also differ anyway, because they are applying the same law. A judge may say that, well, you didn't even make any attempt to go out, because if you said that, well, I tried to move out and I held the door and then I realized that it was locked. So they will look at all these circumstances, and then also they also have to listen to the suspect. If perhaps there was a disagreement about something, perhaps some demands or requests and whatever, they will look at all this. It's just the facts. These things are fact-based. They have to look at everything, listen to all of them.
Do they look at the psychology of rape? Because you have situations, and I think it happens a lot, and I've heard it from some people, when they're about to get raped, when they are being assaulted, and it's not even just rape, even when somebody is someone with a knife comes at them, a lot of people freeze.
Yes.
So you have a situation where somebody is being raped. They're not necessarily shouting. Yes. They're not saying, screaming. But they are not necessarily reacting or fighting or
That's
scratching.
a very simple matter. There was knife. That's clear. If there's knife, if there's any weapon there, there's anything that could force the person. It's not, if I say a knife, I'll be scared.
Lawyer,
so the fact that there was knife in the room and you think
that establishes it. Okay.
Yes.
My concern
so I'm talking about anything, any implement. It could be a rod, a stick, or anything. And I'm not talking about rod in that sense. But yeah, of course. Sorry, yes. So anything
not
that
intended. All right. Yeah. My thing is, and it's a concern I've always had. We always expect people to behave in a certain way. I think that's the point here.
Yes.
We always have in our minds, how we expect you to behave if you've been raped, or if you are being raped. There's procedure in our minds as to how people should behave. And sometimes people do not behave the way we expect them to.
Lots of people don't behave the way.
And sometimes you might even think that's how you would behave. But when you are actually faced with a situation...
You just go silent.
No, I'm not saying... I don't think that... I believe that in many years back, from the beginning of these kind of issues, they would say that there has to be a fight. There has to be force. Force should be applied. You have to shout. There has to be maybe bruises. But we have moved from those things. So the law is developing. Right. So, but it doesn't mean that they still will not interrogate the facts. They still have to look at the facts and see really what actually happened. You understand? So they will not, there's no particular set of standard behavior that they expect that if you don't put up this, they will listen to everything. But I think that, yes, but I think that it is just not enough for a lady to say at the beginning that, no, I don't want it. That alone is not enough. You see, that alone is not enough.
I think
because
it's enough.
No, it's not. It's not. Well, so
I think it's
so
enough.
you don't want to look at the conduct of the person after saying no the first time.
But the problem is that it's left to interpretation. If a man really wants it, he can say, "Oh, she was like this and she was like that." I remember one of the things that teacher mentioned. The thing, which, excuse me to say, he said, "But is it rape if she was still wet?" I mean, things like that. The woman says no.
Once she said no, she said no. And let me tell you from personal experience.
Yes.
There are people who would assume you like them because you smiled at them.
Yes.
That happens.
Yes.
When a man thinks because you smiled at him,
yes,
then perhaps.
Yeah, I know.
It happens.
Yes.
So I think that the
that's not what we are talking
no
about.
is emphatic enough.
No, that's not. I'm saying that even after the initial no, you still can do certain things. You still can act in particular ways that would.
Well, as in if you're kissing, you're making out. Making out is not sex.
So how about that?
No,
after saying no, and you begin,
I want to
begin to kiss.
I want to come and.
Well, but no, but you know, kissing leads to something.
No.
It leads to another thing.
There are lots of sessions where it ends there.
No,
it starts
you
and
see,
ends with kissing and touching.
I just want to kiss you.
No, you see,
a girl hasn't lost her virginity. She doesn't want to lose her virginity that night. She just wanted first, second base. End of story.
I just want to kiss you.
And then the guy decides to go all the way.
That's all.
Well, anyway, these are very grey areas.
No, there's nothing grey here.
No, there is.
There's nothing grey here.
Because I'm saying that. Look,
because otherwise someone say, "Oh, then don't start anything unless you're ready."
The whole of this sexual intercourse starts with kissing, most times, isn't it?
Yes,
but then people kiss and the caress and all of that. So, so you said, "I don't want it," and then later on you begin to kiss, the person, and then as you are kissing, and other things follow, and then it happens, and then you say, "Oh, I said no earlier on." So you shouldn't have. You said no, and then you agree for the person to kiss you.
Statistically, a lot of people start kissing and doing other things years before they even actually plan on having sex. So within that time, should we say that the man is allowed?
Okay. How about? You know, it's also possible that after saying no, when you begin to kiss, the lady may now be interested.
Or she may not be interested after
she may. No, I'm talking about she may. No, let's look at it.
Yes, she kiss you and go like, no.
No, I know. You see, why are you taking only that angle? I'm also taking a different angle. I'm saying that after saying no initially, and then she agrees to kiss, and then she's enjoying it, and then now she wants it. She's not going to say, "Oh, now I want it." Everything, you just see the signs, and then it happens. And then the lady now turns back and says, "Well, I said no earlier on, about 15 minutes ago. I said no, so it's rape." And if you are a judge, and then you don't want to listen to the guy who is telling you that, well, after saying no, I thought we were all joking, and later on the person led me on, and all that. You have to see whether indeed the conduct of the lady led the guy on. You have to look at all of this. Otherwise, you'll be putting many innocent people in jail for nothing, just because there are ladies out there also who want to make up this. You don't want to agree that ladies can make up these things?
I find it, I mean, there have to be exceptions now.
Yes, if they can make these things up, how do you determine those ones?
You see, but I think we have
how do you determine the ones that they are making up?
I think we also have to even be sensitive to even the audience here, because if you're talking to a mix of men and women right now, what are the men picking from this? That they are allowed, if the woman,
happy that we are having this conversation
on,
actually, because then we can have the chance to look at, because these are the arguments that will come up in any situation like that.
And I know a scenario where a woman said no, and it was clear. The man kept on, like they were making out whatnot. They hadn't necessarily stopped. But then the thing is that the man then started to try and force his way. Her position, or should I say her action, was not necessarily to freeze as much as her disappointment and her disgust just puts her in a position where she just went limp. She went limp.
Shock.
And he did what he wanted. And I remember she asked about that and said, was that rape? Now the thing is that she went limp. She didn't act, she didn't contribute. But she had said no at the beginning. This was someone she knew enough and believed he should have read that and understood that I've said no. But he's forcing himself. He's not necessarily forcing with effort, but he's trying to be, he's basically, what's the word? I won't even say finessing. He's pushing he's pushing the issue without her contribution. And I feel in a sense, we give boys a lot of leeway that they shouldn't be having.
You see, and this is my attitude to all of this. At the end of the day, no woman, well, let me not say no woman, most women would not willingly come out and portray their sexuality, especially around these parts. Even people who are married and have children do not want to discuss sexuality as women. It's not something that a woman would proudly come out and talk about. And so no woman wants to come out and say, I have been raped. So I would always err on the side of the woman than I would on the man in these instances around these parts. Because it's not something to proudly brandish around. And so for a woman to come out and say that I have been raped, I would listen to her. Now, the argument I'm making really is, if you're a man, knowing how sensitive this is, what it means, what it's about and all of that, why don't you be doubly, triply, quadruply sure before you engage? I think it's safe for everybody involved. It's safe for the woman. It's safe for you, the man. It's safe for everybody.
So
the least resistance. Stop.
And you know what? I want viewers to also understand that I'm not on the side of men necessarily. I'm not saying that, but you see, look what we are discussing here should also educate the women. It should help them also to make the right judgment. And so we shouldn't be overly on their side saying that let's let them understand the issues clearly, and so they know what exactly to do, and what exactly the law is looking for before they come out and say that they were raped. Okay, otherwise, you see, if we make this sweeping, women would think that, well, of course, once so they get themselves. But I'm saying that
difficulty with this, and I'm sorry that I'm sounding a little pushy. My difficulty with this, I was reading. I like to read random stuff. I was reading this thing about how the safety precautions against rape.
Yes.
And it starts with you personally,
yes.
With you, the woman. The safety precautions. So make sure you look decent.
What?
Make sure you don't put yourself in there.
Where did you get this?
I saw this on the net. I'll show it to you.
Okay.
Obviously somebody's blog post, like that's somebody's personal opinion.
Well, that's
but
somebody's personal. That's not the
problematic.
Standard. Yes.
These are the problematic. So for me, there's no measure against rape.
Yeah.
There's no safety precaution against
rape. Not on the woman's side. It should
there's
be
no
entirely...
safety precaution against rape. It has nothing to do with what you are wearing. Yesterday at 3, I saw the... Did you see that on Facebook? I didn't see the video, but I saw a post about apparent video about a 3-year-old girl who had been raped. And apparently there was a video about the girl when she was in hospital. She died, basically. So the video was just about her screams and all of that when they were treating her. Now, what did that 3-year-old girl wear? That was so seductive that someone couldn't control himself.
Well, that was diffaming. I don't know whether that issue even came up about what the person wore or not. I'm not sure.
Mad women are getting raped.
Yeah, yes. So,
what are they wearing?
Yeah, I do agree with you. We cannot focus on what the women are wearing. But, of course, when you are talking about culture, because it is rape culture, and you are trying to tackle the thing from the fundamentals. And if you are talking about that, then perhaps you may also want to think about our culture here, how people dress. I am not, look, I don't want to say they dress in a particular way, but of course there are standards also. I believe that people who were making these arguments about how ladies dressed, perhaps they just want to discourage certain types of dressing. No, that's all.
I don't agree with that.
Yes, I'm saying that. Look, as a lawyer, I would never argue about how any lady dressed and say that was the reason why the person won. I would not do that. I don't think it should be so. But I'm saying that...
Or even her sexual history.
It shouldn't be.
No, sexual history, no.
Those things
they don't come in, at all. I'm saying that they don't come in. That's why I'm saying that some of these things, they are not coming up very much. Maybe because you are like a social worker, you are on the ground listening to people and you know that these are problems. So there are other problems for me. Look, I was in Liberia working with their criminal justice system where the victims, you see, the victims, they give them money and then they dodge the police. They don't come. In fact, they will make the report the very first time. And then when they begin to investigate the matters, the suspect and the families, they approach them and perhaps they make some offers to them and then they leave. You see, so these are very objective issues that we know exactly what the problem is, because then I was even recommending, because I was working with the system, and I was recommending that, look, if you cannot find a victim, because then you need a victim, it's a principal witness, he has to come to court and testify. So if that person is not going to come forward because the person took money from the suspect and vanished, then the very first statement, because when it happened initially, they will come and they will talk, they will say everything, and they will take their statement. So I'm saying that they should use the very first statement that they gave, even though they are not there to testify, for them to be cross-examined. This adversarial, meaning that if it is two-sided, you have to be there for the other person to question you. You see, so if you are not available, and if it can be established that your disappearance has something to do with the suspect is the one that made you to disappear, so that you know, then they should use the first statement that you gave to the police. You see, so, but these are ways that we try to go around it. But as for these issues about once you say no first and the way you dress and all that, I don't think they are big issues. Although I think that in the minds of people, people do talk about them. But when it comes to the law and the courts,
No, but you
these
see,
things don't play at all.
I feel it's true. I understand that, and I appreciate that the law being as well-oiled as it is. But then my problem is, before it gets to the law, before it gets to the reporting, there are lots of people waver in that, and I think a big aspect has to do with I wouldn't say it's a culture. I wouldn't say it's a culture, and that's why I mentioned before that if you look before we're colonized, or even whilst we're still being colonized at the beginning of the 20th century, the dressing of women was, and even within my own fairly brief lifetime, you see people walking in inner cities and so on, bare-chested. So I don't necessarily think our culture.
Males, right?
No, women.
Okay. Females.
I don't think our culture necessarily condones, how a person is dressed or whether they've slept with a lot of men. I think a lot of our cultures even have a lot of very matrilineal aspect to it, which means women were a lot more empowered than comparatively the West.
Yeah.
So I feel like the big problem really has a lot more to do with the fact that we focus a lot of the education on women, what you should do. And I don't think the victim should be, I feel the law should, not the law, but the culture of education, and to some extent the way the law is handled on the police and the law enforcement side should be such that me as a man, no matter what a woman does, she comes all the way to some whatever place to come and visit me, I should fear raping her because I know the way the law will come down on me. And unfortunately, right now, that doesn't exist.
Society would also come down on you.
Exactly. Society will come down on me. The system will come down on
me. I don't
Yes.
disagree with
right
that.
now,
at all.
that doesn't happen. So we have a situation,
Yes.
and you mentioned before that it's people, the big men who tend to get away with it. When you say big men, it goes all the way down to people, who don't necessarily have money, middle class, average middle class people, even sometimes barely, almost working class level, where they basically, someone has raped someone, and the person knows somebody in the police. That's it. It doesn't even have to be a commissioner or anything important. He knows someone in the police. That's it. He gets away with it.
Yeah. So instead of saying big men, let's say people who are connected.
Or
If
just
they are connected, they always-
the average.
let's
the
just
average
say male,
Ghanaian.
because
Yeah.
my thoughts go straight to male privilege. Let's
Exactly.
just say male.
Yeah, I think so. A lot
Male
of the system
privilege.
is
So
unfortunately
you
controlled by
think
men.
the system favors the men in
Very
Yes.
much so. Very much so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
A lot
of our
It may-
system,
it may be so. It may be so. But I don't think they can legislate against that. They can make laws against that. It has to be education, like you said. We have to educate the people, and we have to educate the females, especially since in Ghana it is only females.
we have to
No,
educate
I
the
think we have
men
to- it's
especially.
men,
Well,
boys,
yeah.
from childhood.
Well, okay. No,
The
I am.
men
Because the
Especially.
big aspect is that we objectify,
No, my
we objectify women.
My position is that the acts have been committed already, and if the acts are committed, then we are finding ways. Or you are trying
No,
to.
I'm talking
you are
about,
talking about
I'm
prevention,
talking
right?
about prevention.
Well,
Because
if
the
you are
point is
talking
that-
about, you see, if you are talking about prevention,
yes.
if you are talking about prevention, then the issue about dressing, I am not saying that it's a big factor. You see, but if you are talking about prevention, if you are going
Me,
to
I think it's
if you are
an
going to advise men as to how to know, then you may
I
equally
think it's
because
an issue.
look,
I think it's
look,
an
if you
issue.
dress, no, it's an issue in a sense, but I'm also saying that look, you may be raped even before the matter comes out, before the person is even convicted. You have been raped already. Your life has been damaged. You see, so if you can conduct yourself, if you can carry yourself in a certain way that you even attract such people.
Raped by people they know.
Yes.
Most cases. I mean,
Yes.
comparatively,
Yes.
people they know.
Yes.
So it has nothing to do with that day.
Yes. So
On
how
which
does
you
the
were
dress? How does the dressing?
lot
The
of-
So it
dressing
has
come
nothing to do
in?
with what you were wearing on that day that you were raped.
Yes.
Nothing. The person has probably been.
Yes.
And in most instances, when it's older men and younger
then
girls, they've groomed the person
Then are we
for
not the ones
months and
Are we
months
not the
and
ones
months.
exaggerating this issue about how they
You see,
dress?
you know why I'm saying. You know
For
why
what
I'm
you are saying.
You know why I'm saying
it
that.
means that we.
Because I'm saying that how they dress has nothing to do with it.
Exactly.
Yes. So
No, because the fact of the
look,
matter
people
is,
dress. Look, we look at them and we go. We don't chase them and try to rape them. Every now and then
Yes,
it's happening.
and you want every
You see?
man to be like you, lawyer.
exactly.
You want every
you
man
see,
to be
I
like
think,
you.
Well,
I think, I think,
and,
I think the
Well,
I think the
there are
men
bad
who say-
there are bad women out there too. So
I think the men who say the dressing of the woman was a factor, or we try and push the agenda, it tends to be the people who want to justify
Excuses.
why they rape. Because on reality there doesn't seem to be a consistent
and you have to
trend.
understand them that people will defend themselves. You understand?
So-
They'll throw in everything to defend
But then
themselves.
that's not should be. It
So
shouldn't be
all of us as
responsibility
society
women.
to say that,
that is
no,
why that is
shut
why
up, nothing to do
that's
with
what
what
I'm
she was
saying
wearing.
that's what I'm saying that it is at the end of it all, it is the law that is going to be applied. If the courts are doing the wrong thing, if the courts are applying these standards, then it's a different thing altogether. Then we should be alarmed. because I'm saying as for
I
suspects,
agree. I agree with that.
they will defend themselves. They will come and say all kinds of things, the way the person dressed, the way but whether those things will hold sway, that is what we are talking about. And I'm saying that they will say all those things and it won't help them.
It won't help. I'm happy to hear that.
Yes, it won't help them.
I'm happy to hear that it won't help. Well, let's bring in the viewers, at this point. This one says, hello, please, what about rape in marriage?
Yes.
Is the woman supposed to leave the bedroom even after saying no to her husband? Now, this is tricky. Lawyer.
Wait.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, who wants to come
please,
first?
Well, in Ghana and in most African countries, I don't even know in any African countries. In fact, I think there are only a few countries worldwide that have upheld that. I believe the issue, rape in marriage, yes. I think that in Africa and in Ghana especially, the issue is about safeguarding the privacy and sanctity of marriage.
Oh.
You know, it's true. They don't.
No, that's not good. That's not good.
We've not heard about it before.
You signed a deal to be with somebody, and another person can rape you anytime.
Yes, no. What I'm saying, but it doesn't happen. Nobody.
It does.
Well,
Oh my
what
goodness.
I mean, if I say it doesn't happen,
Sleeping with a rapist.
I'm not saying that husbands do not. I don't want to say rape they are, because rape if the law has not found that you have rape, then you have no rape. So husband do not force.
Then the law should be
do not,
changed.
But it
they do not have
happens.
sex
It
with
happens
their.
a lot.
Yes, it may happen. But what I'm saying is that I have never heard this in
Oh, it has.
any
I can tell you an example of
Lawyer.
court.
No. It doesn't have to
I'm
go to
talking about
court.
the courts. That's what I'm saying.
No,
that
you
look,
see, that's why we're
no,
agreeing
you are
that
not paying
before-
attention to what I'm saying.
Let's pay attention.
Okay.
Let's pay
Let's pay
attention to
attention.
lawyer.
What I'm saying is that this is not in our law books. You understand?
It's not?
No.
We don't have a law that covers rape in marriage.
No.
But that is very bad.
And yes, that's right. And I'm explaining to you that I haven't heard about any woman, any wife
I have.
who has come to the court. You may have heard, and I'm saying that
In private life,
yes,
he's saying.
Yes.
it may be happening all over the place every time the woman says I don't want it and all of that, and then,
So then
and
the
then
law
they do
should,
their own
then
thing.
the law should probably change.
Our laws do not. We don't even rape men in Ghana. How about that?
The
Men
law,
cannot be raped.
apparently they said
So-
9 men every year get raped, but it's true
they-
statistically.
You see, the rape
And we don't
is
have
a
a- we
creature of the
don't
law. No woman has ever been convicted in
And
Ghana
we
for
don't have
raping
any
a man.
protection for those 9 men.
No, yes.
Let's hear lawyer.
Yes, I'm
Let's
saying
go
that
for
no woman has ever been convicted in Ghana for raping a man. I don't know about it. If there is, well, I'm sure somebody may call to correct me, or the lawyers who are listening may, but I haven't heard about it. So I'm saying that the law has not made provision for those. And in the same way, rape in marriage. And I'm saying the reason may be that they just think that they don't want to, like the popular saying, we don't want to wash our dirty linen in public and all that. It may be as wrong as anything, like you're saying. But I'm saying they just want to safeguard the sanctity of marriages and maybe perhaps privacy of marriage. So whatever happened in their home and all of that, we don't want to bring it out for people to. That may be the reason. But even if that is not the reason, the fact is that it is not an issue in Ghana. We haven't heard about it in any court before.
I think
So
I appreciate what lawyer is saying.
I
Only
do to an
because
extent.
I cannot imagine any woman coming up to say my husband raped me and hoping to go back to the marriage.
It doesn't have to be going back to the
Unless
marriage.
the point is that
if
you are
someone has
done.
raped you, I think that in
Unless
itself
you are
is a
done.
situation where she will want to move out.
Not in all instances.
No, but you see here.
Realistically, not in all instances.
No, but you see, here's a goes back to the situation where we live, unfortunately, in a man's world, in the sense that you have a situation where, and this is common not just in some isolated situation. A lot of women, their fathers tell them, until you get married, you're not moving out. You're not going to, you can afford to stay by yourself, but you are not. So the person is staying home. Then she moves from her father's house to her husband's house. That's the only thing the reality she's known. For that reason, when she gets raped, what are her options? She's going to her parents, who maybe she knows her parents will send her back to her husband's house. She has never had a situation where she's lived by herself. Maybe the man doesn't want her to work. Again, this happens in Ghana, doesn't it? So she's not in a financial situation where she's independent enough. So that's why I was saying there's a lot of problems when it comes to the kind of patriarchal system we live in. And rape is a product of patriarchy. The idea of objectifying women, the idea of women not being empowered enough to be able to have options. All these things factor in. Now, we might agree to the fact that when it goes to courts, then it's a non-issue now because the process will take over. I don't know enough about how the legal system works. I did bring some concern about the human aspect of how people treat the victim. But a lot of the problem happens before even they get to court, or even once they pass the police point, because unfortunately the entire system causes women to be afraid. It's like it's on you. You've been raped. You have been stigmatized. You know, why did you are, oh, this woman, you know, it's like your whole life you're going to be seen without sympathy. You're going to be seen with disgrace. The man goes along, allegedly. There are a number of men who are walking the street, important people in social media, you know, they rape somebody or they assaulted somebody. They're going free. Nobody is doing anything to
Nothing.
them.
I want us to bring in the viewers. Yeah, can I?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
This one says, hello. I was once in my house when a girl visited. She started playing and, smooching with me. All her clothes were off, except her panties. I got turned on. Then immediately she started saying no. But I couldn't stop, and it happened. Can this be classified as rape? You didn't add your name. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you
Definitely
raped her.
yes.
Yes, I say
You
yes
raped her.
too.
You say yes too, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, I do.
Hallelujah.
You see, the big mistake the mistake people make is the assumption that, you know, a man can't stop or he can't help himself. For me, from what I know of, listen to people's testimonies and my own, so I won't say near anything, but when you are in a situation and you decide to stop, you realize that it has nothing to do with, it's not a car.
But
There's
you
no,
know,
you know, having to do a punching.
But you know, let's get back to that scenario. If the no
It's a
was
conscious
said
thing.
earlier, before the clothes went off and all of that, you know, it might be interpreted in a different way.
That's different. That's a different scenario.
Yes, yes.
But if the no was said after the clothes came off,
yes, and she
everything
was
had
just in
happened.
panties and said,
But you
no,
see,
I
we are
don't
still
want it.
putting
At
the
that point,
responsibility
yes.
on the woman. The woman have as much sexual agency as
No,
the man.
I like this because this is giving us a way out, how the law works. I only want to appreciate
the law.
Yes.
The way you are
I
looking, the way you are
appreciate
looking at it,
Yes.
is, you know, you have to be a little flexible. You see, you can't just
There's
say
no
that once.
flexibility, lawyer.
No. I'm saying that we have to understand that in reality,
in the current law.
No, I have told you the position of the law already.
Yes.
This particular scenario, I told you that, look, the person said that they were playing, smooching and everything.
Yes.
Everything was
Clothes had
off
come
except the
off.
panties, and
Yes.
the woman said no. The girl said no. That
Yes.
is the end of it. She
Yes.
doesn't want it.
Exactly.
It would be different, you see, if the
She had
clothes
said
were...
no when she came
she
in.
said no when she
Yes.
came in, and then later on she started
She started
playing
taking off her
clothes.
clothes.
Yes, and then the clothes were
Appreciate-
off.
so
At that
timing
point,
is
the
everything
facts,
here.
Yeah, the facts are now different. And don't say that they shouldn't analyze these facts because the
Oh,
person said
no. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm
So
not saying
they will look
shouldn't.
at it and said, if you said no,
Yes.
why then did you
Take
allow
off
the
your
person
clothes.
to take off your clothes? And
So that's
then
why
you have to also
I guess that's why
you have to
feel like it's
establish
organic.
that
It should be organic.
the person even took the clothes off without your agreement.
I
If you
appreciate
cannot,
this.
and you agree for the
you see,
person to
that's
take
why-
your
that's
clothes
why
off,
I
then you
feel-
can...
That's why I feel the law should be organic, because at the end of the day, it means that we are denying a woman's agency sexually. Because a woman might want to go as far as
She wants.
No, but
Without
that
necessarily
is
having-
not
Let's
right.
involve the viewers.
No,
Let's
no,
not get
no,
into other
but-
arguments. Let's involve the
Well,
viewers.
but this is a
Let's
very
involve the
important
viewers.
point he's making now. Let me just 1 second. So what you are saying is that the woman can lead the man on to whatever
course.
level and then say, no, I don't
You
want...
see, I don't
But
think
no,
sex is
I don't
something-
think it works.
I don't think sex
It's
is
not for
something
the
that's done
man.
to a woman. It's both people.
It's not for the
No,
man.
Exactly.
but that... No,
I'm
I
not
don't
doing
think...
this for you.
So
You're doing this
I'm
for you.
involved
Enjoy
too.
it.
It's
So
about
you
me
go, you
too.
do everything
Of course.
for the man, and
It's
the
not
man
for the man,
No.
lawyer. It's not for the man.
No, the both of them are playing,
No, it's
and then you
for me.
contribute
Lawyer.
positively, and then
Lawyer.
it gets to a point where
Lawyer, you are
everybody
aware
knows
of-
that
you
at
are
that
aware of-
point,
you are aware of-
just the next second it has to happen, and then you say,
you are
no,
aware
no,
of-
no,
you are aware
no.
of
They will
first-
look at
you are
it
aware
and
of
see whether
first- You're
at
aware
that
of
point.
first, second, and third base, right? You see, the point is that first base is supposed to be
Yeah, let's bring in the
base,
viewers.
let
in.
me just conclude this one. Second base is supposed to be anything else before actual penetrative sex. The point is, a woman might want to do everything else except for penetration.
No. Then you have
And
to tell me.
that's
Then you have to
okay.
tell the
That
man
is
from the beginning
okay.
that
And
look.
that's okay.
No,
lawyer.
then you have
but
to
you
tell the
see-
man from the beginning that look, I just want it to this stage. You see, and the man has to understand that you have come here and this is what you want. You don't want it to
they're
go beyond.
sucking all the fun
But
out
yes,
of-
no.
Yeah.
but if you
Lawyer
don't
is
say-
feeling the romantic vibe.
No, but if you don't say that, you see, if you don't say that, there's a logical sequence, and the things are happening.
Should be able to
Yeah,
start.
the
But
things
the
are
man
happening.
thinks,
Everybody knows.
all right.
Everybody
Yes.
knows what is going to happen next, and then you say no. At that point,
Well, I didn't know what was going to happen next. Anyway.
One thing is
Okay, listen, this one says, please, if a girl at the onset said no to a sex proposal and later feels interested along the way, can the sex be classified as rape?
No, and that is exactly why you guys are saying. You guys think it should still be rape. But the person got interested. The person said no. The person came in
I'm not
first.
saying
He
it should
didn't
be
want
rape.
it.
I'm
And then
saying
later
that
the person wanted it.
lawyer, I'm saying that
Yes.
at that moment the man should insist on the woman explicitly saying yes.
No.
If at any
Well,
point
that's why the
woman
men are
said
now
no,
even coming out with written agreement. I've been seeing the funny.
That would be great.
Let me ask.
if the woman
It
said
doesn't,
no,
it doesn't work like that in
Of course it
reality.
if the woman said no at any point during
Any
the
point.
time,
Yes.
at any point, then I feel that it is very important
She
for
has
both
to,
of
she
you
has to revoke that
you
no
make
clearly.
the woman clearly say yes
Well,
before you proceed.
Exactly.
Lawyer,
Yes.
before
It
you
works both
proceed.
ways.
But you see,
It's for you, it's also for
because
her.
that may
It's
be
all
that
of
may
you.
be a very difficult standard. That's why they look at the facts to see whether the no has been revoked. Actually, the facts
Lawyer,
will
that's
establish
the
that.
difference between going to jail and staying in your
You
house.
see, because the problem is that we give a lot of leeway to tell a man that, oh, you know, we started having sex, we got maybe midway into the first stroke, and the woman changed her mind. But then the man realizes that the law will not protect the woman because they'll say, you can't change your mind when you started having sex. And that's the problem. A woman should be able to change her mind at any point.
No.
And that's why I feel like there needs to
no.
be activism to get people to start to
Yes.
change these
No,
laws.
no.
To make it possible.
It will
Right, let's
be
begin the
too
video.
easy
Let's
for
not
women.
forget the
Because
video.
we are
Let's
giving
not
women
forget
a
the video.
lower position.
This one says, the assumption is that we all have the same backgrounds, upbringings, and deal with bad situations the same way. It is a lawyer's responsibility to advocate for the victim and bring out the nuances of the case. So saying all cases should be judged the same way is very wrong. If you look at it from that angle, you are saying that every man behaves badly because a woman does something bad. I doubt that's what you mean, because what that means, because that means that you, lawyer, would rape a woman because of her attire or whatever causes another man to rape her. That is not true. There's something called self-control. So then, you have to assume that no matter what a woman does, it is the man's decision to take it to a place of rape. The name is Jemima from North Legon. Jemima, I love your message.
Well,
Lawyer
Jemima,
doesn't love your message.
no, Jemima is
Lawyer
you see, Jemima will go to court and the court to establish for her that what she's saying doesn't work like that. So she rather has to
Actually,
know.
this brings out an interesting question for me in terms of the whole idea of self-discipline. If somebody gets angry and starts to take this table and whack you with it, and you are dying or you are in a coma, wouldn't that person be, wouldn't they send me to jail for that?
Yes, of course.
But then could I say, well, the guy provoked me
Yeah.
enough, so
He
therefore it should be
insulted me.
justified?
He insulted me, and so I grabbed the
there are-
table and I whacked
the
him.
same thing when it comes to sex.
It depends on the facts. Self-defense is there also. So
No, but doesn't self-defense always has a
It's not
caveat.
self-defense.
But-
Self-defense says you use the
You
same
say something
the
that
same
annoyed
force
me.
that was applied against you.
You see, self-discipline doesn't
You
mean
can't
that.
go beyond the force that was applied.
How you guys explaining self-discipline? It means that the woman comes and says, I don't want it, and later on got interested and now wanted it and I do it. So I was not self-disciplined. Is that the way you want to put it? They have to look at the facts and see whether the person, after saying she didn't want it, she now wanted it. They have to look at the circumstances. It's just so simple. She may want it. She may really want it.
I'm
so let's find
accepting
out
that
whether,
that's what is.
Yes.
So, I mean, now you know what is. So
Yes.
if you're going up against a rape case, you know what to expect. And so as women, we know how to...
And the reason why this is
know.
important is that the ladies are also listening now. They have to know what they need to do.
That's what I'm saying. And
Yes,
I appreciate what
otherwise
you're
we
saying.
appreciate
I
Actually,
appreciate
all right,
Yes.
let me read it. This one says, good evening to you, Ama Pratt, and to your panelists. It's always pathetic to hear about rape, especially ones that involves underage children and kids. There should be education for females on their dress and you lost me there. The dangers of this shameful act and on the laws against it.
Which
His name
one's
is
the shameful? Can you
Ayaga Akudugu
The
Musa
dressing on
from
rape.
Boko. You had me until dressing.
Please, please.
You lost me there.
Yeah, of
because
course.
we cannot make dressing a prerequisite for rape. Then nobody should be able to go to the beach. Then
And there's-
then somebody should just walk onto a beach and start raping the
Okay,
women.
well, I'm
And there's
okay with
this-
the new
The next
dishes.
one, just
We're not gonna
keep
do
raping and
Mama,
raping
there's
and
this
going.
issue about statutory rape that we didn't address in a way. That is
Okay.
also very important for especially the men to know that
What is the
when-
age gap for?
the age is when the person is not 16 years. That's
16?
15 and below. 16 years, there's rape. 15 years, whether the person, in fact, if the person is 15 years and below, the person does not have the capacity to even consent.
Our messages are compounded.
to
Let me just rush through them, lawyer. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Can I?
All right.
Because I'm checking the time. I don't want us to do the same thing. All right. This one says, good evening to you and to your wonderful panelists. I like this discussion so much. But with the issue of rape, it is not the matter of the dress being put on by the lady. It is just the inner makeup of mind by these uncultured and uncouth group of people. If not, what does a normal person see in a 3-year-old girl that pushes him to go ahead to rape her? It's simply sickening. The name is Yado Dabri from Bindi, Northeast Region. Listen, 120% I agree with you. This one says, okay, Ama, you are an amazing journalist. Thank you. Your show is very educative. Thank you. Watching you live from Kaswa, Obom Road, Akako, Ankara. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. I thought you had a question or a comment. All right. This one says, good evening, Ama. Have you forgotten that men can also be raped? This is Uthman Abdullah from Ashanti region.
Yeah, except that it doesn't happen in Ghana.
It does happen.
Well, no, the act happens, but the rape, the court has to establish
So
that a particular act is rape.
what happens to a victim who is traumatized the rest of his life because he has been raped? Either by man or woman, it doesn't matter.
No, you know, what I'm saying is that...
So if a man is raped, there's no way he can go with it.
There's no way he can go.
He can't take it to court.
You see, technically, if a court doesn't say a person has been raped, then there was no rape.
Yeah,
Technically.
you
understand?
So
there was penetration, there was sexual intercourse, the court says it's not rape, then it's not rape.
So that means there's no repercussion for...
No, repercussions, you are talking about something else. The law is not thinking about repercussions or anything. The law defines what rape is. And I'm saying that it is a law that creates the act. So you have to go to the law for the law to see whether the particular
rape or
act
not.
falls. Yes, if it doesn't fall, then it is something else. You may describe
rape.
it whatever you want to describe it. It's
so
sex, whatever, you know, but it's not rape.
But lawyer,
That's
per the definition of our laws, a man cannot be raped because it's SPCC states.
Yes, because
woman.
the law says that female, carnal knowledge of female of 16 years and above. It's clear, female.
I think these
That's what I'm
laws have to
saying.
be updated.
Yes, well, yeah, of course, that is a different thing if they have to update it. But it says female, so it can only be female. That's what I'm saying. So I'm not saying that the act of maybe tying a man down and having sex with him, I don't say it doesn't happen. But I'm saying that...
It can only be another man.
Yeah, I'm saying that that matter can be pronounced as rape only by a court. And the law doesn't create anything for that. And so you can't go to court and say this was rape. And it doesn't happen in our... But again, I also added that it is the courts that interpret this law. So maybe if these issues come up, if a man should be bold enough and go and test the law, and the court
Then
says
we
that
might
indeed...
see.
Yes,
I wish someone would
Is there
do
any
that. I wish someone would do that.
activism by lawyers that's, who realize their gaps? Because you guys are a lot more closely linked to the laws. Or is it sometimes you see that there are these gaps and therefore, the lawyers decide to group up and say, let's push this
Let's
agenda.
advocate.
Well, yeah, they do it. We have the law reforms. They have been looking at the laws.
Yeah.
But also activists from the social activists and all of that. You can also come in, civil society and all of that. You can make suggestions. So I think that these things are
But mostly
going.
we are behind the lawyers.
These things
the
are
lawyers who
ongoing.
ultimately
The lawyers, we just we apply the law that is in the books. Then we go to court and we try to use the law to defend our clients or to support our clients or whatever. So if you think that the law should be restructured or reformed or reenacted or repealed and all of that, the pressure can come from anywhere.
From anywhere.
Yeah.
Let me read it. This one says, Eric from Otsi region. Good evening to you, Ama. Well, good evening to you, Eric, and to your panelists. To me, rape is a very serious issue, and most of the time, the law is made for the poor. So my best advice to men is when you propose to a lady and she says no, please walk away. And we men should try and control our libidos, because what the ladies wear sometimes, Eric from Woodsy, me and you were, we're getting along, and you just slipped it in there. All right, please, let's face reality sometimes. Yeah, pardon not intended. Sometimes those ladies wear, when they visit you, knowing very well you two have nothing in common, sometimes the ladies play vital when it comes to rape.
See, I think this is a goes
Eric,
back to
you
the
lost
culture.
me.
You
You
see,
lost
but
me.
you see
You
how many
completely
of
lost
these
me, Eric.
posts have said this thing 3 times, and I think that's why we have to eliminate that notion that dressing has anything or
the law has done its part already. The law does not accommodate those. So for the rest of you social workers who want to educate the people, you can embark on it. But the law does not help people like that who think that your dressing could lead you into no.
Great,
yeah,
great.
So.
I'm happy to hear that. This one says, good evening. This is Sidiki Abdullahi from Kusanaba and Boko West. I want to know whether a woman can be charged with rape or not.
I think we answered that one.
Yes, that was answered over and over again. Our laws say only.
How about the rape of another woman?
How about what?
The rape of another woman.
A woman raping another woman. Yeah, I think that can happen.
That can happen under the law.
Yes.
Or about a woman raping a man.
Yes, because you said that only females can be raped. That is what the law says.
This one says there are some cultures in Ghana with the notion that a woman must be submissive to her husband. So let's say there's a day where the woman is not in the mood and the man is, and the man goes on to have sex with her. Can it be classified as sex or rape? I think we answered this also.
Yes, I'm saying that I don't think it is right for men to force their wives to having sex, though. But it doesn't come up because this is not marital rape. Is not an issue.
Okay. This one says, "Hi, lawyer. Do the men have the right? If they have, is it right for a woman to be taking money from a man? How? Okay.
I think it's non sequitur. I don't think taking money is any way connected.
Taking money. The women, this is what they do all this time. They always take money from the men.
Well,
that doesn't have anything to do with.
Yeah, let's empower women so they don't need to take money from the men. Lord.
Well, okay. Yeah. Who empower them? Who has to do that?
All of us.
Let's all force to do something for ourselves. You know.
This one says, "Good evening, Ama. Do not start what you cannot finish. How can you lead a man on and then say no? Why did you start it in the first place? Self-discipline is very important. That's why it's in every religion.
Ironic.
Some of our ladies should also learn that and stop tempting some men and turning around to say they have been raped. Part of the Lord's Prayer says, do not lead us into temptation." Bridget Danceman, Bridget.
What is he talking to God?
Bridget.
When he said lead us into temptation.
Bridget, that's what I meant earlier.
Well, yeah,
the fact that lead us into temptation is not an excuse, not a justification.
Yes.
It's preemptive. It's for you, the man, to realize your humanity. And if you know that you are being tempted, flee from the temptation.
Perhaps that may be a
Don't
factor.
rape somebody and say I was led into temptation.
Perhaps that may be something we call mitigating factor in law, meaning that they may convict you, but the sentence they will look at it and so the person dragged you into it. So yeah, let's be lenient.
Dragged you.
Well, yeah.
By your soul.
Yeah.
All right, Emma, please read all my messages. You didn't add your name. If you tell me your name and where you're sending the message, I promise I'll read it. That's why I didn't read all of your messages. All right, this one says, oh, okay. All those calling. If we could activate the phone lines, let's take a break. I think we should take a break at this point. Come back and activate the phone line so viewers can call in. Okay, right. So we will take a quick break at this point. Stay with us.
Oh, it's incredible! Bang on target!
Ben, Zendria, Yatra Mr. Kill. Ah, strong showing every year.
Oh, Kusia, a member draw, Ghana Limited for Akofaba, the Piasso Bomitisu, and he said, because so much down for Adolf. And what Trem said, a draw, a Mr. Kill, Nico Cosson, and he said, no, so
It's right. Sit down on your 1 million and run it down and put a service on your back.
Mr. Kill, Mr. Kill.
Come in.
Yeah, I don't let any say that here, Mr. Kill. issue in the issue back up and not the girl, you know, baby, the way come out. Mr. Kill, oh, yeah, kill back up.
I give you all a boy could give you.
Hello, welcome back from the break. If you are just tuning in, you've missed a lot, but you know we are just about concluding on the show. This week we have been talking about rape, and we've mainly been taking your views and your comments, you know, on the issue. Let me read a few of the messages. Let me also announce that our phone lines have been activated, so you can join the conversation. You can make your voice be heard, literally, by calling the number in front of the screen. This message says, men defiling or raping women is so wrong. Isn't that an understatement? Any man found guilty of defilement or rape must be castrated and punished by doing very hard labor. Her name is Madame Nana Araba. What's the law? What's the
they get
punishment?
jailed up to 25 years.
Between 5 to 25
25
years.
for rape, and defilement is 7 years to 25. And defilement is children, when children are molested, sexually molested, yeah.
So
Do
it's
you think
between
it's deterrent
7 and
enough?
25?
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Do you think it's deterrent enough? Let's look at that.
Well, it may be. Even one day in prison is not easy at all. So
But do we have
think that-
anything like something that when a person comes out of prison, there's some acknowledgement that this is a rapist, so that, you know, the person is
No.
noted?
well, if it's how acknowledgement, how would you want that to be done? To be
It
announced?
should be on his files.
It should be on his
Oh yes, but the
file.
record
When
is the record is there already. If you are convicted,
but
the
I
record
mean-
is in the courts. Nobody goes to go and look at those records unless the person is completing a form for something, and that those things may come up. But
Because I mean,
I think it is once you are convicted, it's in public court. They are convicted, and you go in there.
But
You come, but
victims
everybody
are-
know you went to prison, and that's it.
So
But
that they don't get
can't-
into some sensitive positions like teaching.
oh yeah.
So they don't come out from prison for rape and come and end up in somebody's school as a teacher.
Yes, and I believe that in recruiting
Or
staff for
dealing-
all this, I believe
or
that
dealing with the vulnerable. I read this horrible story about how one nurse in the northern region used to rape the patients. I don't know if you came across that story.
No, I haven't.
I didn't follow it. I wanted to know how it all.
That's,
A male
that's
nurse.
quite
A male
bad.
nurse.
That's quite bad.
Because sick people are
Yeah.
vulnerable
Yeah.
and weak.
Yeah, I think that should even be beyond the normal rape. I believe they have to find something else. The punishment has to be harsh.
Yes.
Harsher than that.
But there are people who are rapists.
Yes.
People who get off on,
Yeah, actual repeated.
yes.
Yeah.
The
yeah, there are
force
people like that.
applied, the resistance. That's
And you know
what they like.
there are pedophiles also.
Yes.
Yeah. That
Yes.
one is a happy. They
Yes.
attack children
Yes,
and
they like
male
it.
children, all of that. Yeah. Those things.
But I mean, in terms of having it out there for people to be able to know that this person is a rapist, I mean, it may seem like a branding, like the person suggested castration. I mean, obviously, I think that's harsh. But in terms of the person coming out and being known in the community as to what the person went into
how
prison
would you
for.
want that to be done?
I know. I mean, the developed countries, I think they say they go around and talk to tell the neighbors that, you know, this is
Just a
their
rapist in your
status.
neighborhood.
Yeah. So you don't, because otherwise you have your kids going around. This guy's a pedophile, especially for defilement.
Yeah.
The person is this person. You don't let your kids around this person because of the person's record. Otherwise, you know, the record is
So
existing in some way.
you mean the state should invest in such
They should
things?
make sure the person himself goes around.
Or the person goes around to tell
You know,
people
do we have
that he's a
probation in
rapist.
Ghana?
Yes.
That I was convicted
I've
as a
been
rapist.
convicted of rape.
So
I
be,
just moved
so
into
be
your
careful of
neighborhood.
me.
Yes.
These things, how will these things work? Will you do it?
It happens.
So
It happens.
they'll be
in other
watching you.
countries. It
You know it's
happens in
going to
other
cost
countries.
money for you to be monitored to
Not
do that.
monitored, though. Do we have probation in Ghana?
No, we don't. But
Okay.
how is that going to be done? Because you asked me to go to
Maybe
like
the
every
first day
day
you
I
come
should go to
out.
10 houses.
The first day you come out, the first policeman, until you finish all the houses, you don't.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So somebody,
lawyer.
it means somebody has to be watching you do it. Because you asked me that
course.
every day do 10 houses, and I don't do any. somebody has to come and supervise that I'm actually doing it. So it's going to cost.
We can put a whole squad of police at junctions because one traffic light is off. Why can't we spare some of them?
No, that's just too much, you know. So.
Oh dear. but this is a serious case we are laughing with. It's a very serious case we are laughing with.
But see whether it's practical. That's what I'm talking about.
It's practical. I think it's where we invest our resources.
But then it shouldn't be only rapists though. Even armed robbers, when you come out, you have to go to every house and tell them I was an armed robber.
There should be some.
I was jailed and I just came back, so be careful of me.
No,
and then somebody has to watch and make sure that you do it perfectly, very well.
The thing is,
I don't see how this. I don't know about this anyway.
Madam Elizabeth Ohine's
Yeah.
You hear her?
Yeah, I read.
You know, when she spoke about getting raped twice as a little girl. One when she was 7.
Yes.
I think another time when she was 11.
Yes.
And you know, when she was 7, not even knowing that what she had gone through was rape. She didn't even know that what had happened to her was rape. It was wrong. Had no clue.
Yeah.
So there's that. Oh, I think we have a call on the line. Hello, good evening. Yes, good evening. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Please, my name is Kerry. I'm calling from Bongo.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, what I want to say is that nowadays, we actually believe in a race that involves maybe.
I think we lost him. And our time is, our time is up. So let me rush through these messages quickly. This one, sorry. Good evening. My name is Zolali. If I understand lawyer very well, then it means that sexual intercourse can only be classified as rape by the court. Just like in football, a goal can only be ruled out as offside only and only by the referee.
Yeah, that's
so
correct.
if the referee doesn't say it's offside, it's not offside.
Yeah, that's correct.
So if the court doesn't say what happened is rape, it's not rape.
Yeah, but somebody will prepare the docket and send it to court that we believe this is rape.
Okay.
And then the court will look into it and say indeed it is.
Okay. Well, if you could call back, that would be great. Yes. Somebody was saying, was that me or what was
you were talking about Elizabeth Ohine?
Yes. So what were we saying?
She's my auntie, actually.
Wow.
As far as the rape, as far as having been raped, the information going around circulating.
Yes, and the point I was making with that is, in both instances, it was by people she knew and people she trusted.
Yes, I read that. Yes.
And it happens all the time.
Yes.
If you listen to women's accounts, is that cousin?
Yes, uncle,
that
family
brother's friend. I remember in the university, I remember so well, just joking around and asking, have you been raped before? And one of my friends saying, yes, I have. And she had been raped by her friends. Yeah. I mean, her brother's friend.
People who are very
her
close
big
to
brother's
you.
friend, who was always in the house. And the saddest part was, even after the rape, he was still allowed in the house.
Oh, yes.
He still came around.
Yes, that's usually the scary part.
And he was still always in her face. And so, these are not people that are strangers. And so mothers would even allow their daughter
because they have influence
to be constantly
what happens,
engaging with the person that's constantly raping her.
Yes.
Unbeknownst to them, they wouldn't know that.
No, this is terrible.
And I know certain people who have actually been raped more than one time in their life.
By the same person.
Well, they were raped by one person, that person hung around. Later on, years later on, they were raped by another person, that person hung around. Third time, maybe the person who did it was a one-off. But the point is, we have a very large number. We have a problem, and we handle it as though. That's why I'm very much against the whole "what did a woman do? What did a woman do?" Because the reality is that we need to put fear in people that rape is a serious matter, and that before you even think about doing it. And that's why I feel the education and the consequences need to be grave enough that men don't dare. Doesn't matter whether the woman is naked, whether she comes and rubs herself on him, whether she gets as far as almost sex, he would not dare because he knows the consequences are grave. I think in between we're talking about some very dark possibilities of when the person goes to prison, what could happen to him. These things need to be put out there. Oh no, this is the person. Men need to really realize, because I don't agree with the fact that men, you can't control yourself. We always can, always.
And here, I think that we don't speak about the consequences of rape or the effects of rape on women enough.
At all.
We take it for granted. We assume that for men, I think most men think it's like regular sex. Like, we just But it's not.
It's very traumatic from those I know.
It's worse in other areas like India and other places.
Oh, yes,
yeah,
India. India. Don't even go there.
So I think we are
But
making progress.
they got to this stage before they got there.
Yes.
If it had been nipped in the bud when it was at this stage, they wouldn't have gotten to where they are today.
Yeah, that's why I say we
So,
have come.
I mean, let's talk about the consequences. We have just about 3 minutes. Let's talk about the consequences of rape on women. I'll come to you, Yaw. You work with these issues. What are the consequences of rape on women?
Well, I think the biggest
From your
aspects,
experience.
from my experience, I mean, from my experience and from people I've talked to who have gone through it, it ranges from everything, from a lot of things. Some people have actual dissociative conditions where they actually, it's so traumatic at the moment, they almost separate themselves into parts, whereby one aspect of them, so there are certain psychological conditions that can be generated from it, such as borderline personality disorder, where in one hand you are almost deferring, you're always giving so much, and the other side you are very defensive. You have a big problem with men in general. Then it goes to the slow burn, which is the one that I think a lot of people have, where a person might not realize immediate impact, but long term, how they experience sex changes. They don't like sex, or they never get pleasure from sex. At the same time, too, the way they see men changes, the way they relate to people. There's a certain insecurity, because effectively, the insecurity of having been raped affects the way you feel. Already, imagine how women go out into the street and men are basically undressing with their eyes. That is considered normal, unfortunately. How people treat you. The culture we have where men tell you, but why can't I? The woman brought herself. I couldn't control it. We've made ourselves predators as a gender. So this woman now who has been raped already and she's experienced it in all its horror is going through her entire life dealing with all that. And we leave the person. We don't have many psychological or psychological solutions. Many people don't go to a shrink about a psychologist about it. So you're going through your mind, and it compounds over years. I mean, the standards of your quality of life changes because of an experience that maybe, most likely, you haven't even been able to talk to police about, and so on. So it's quite grave.
Well, this one says, "Hello, I'm James Kanyaku from Sierra Leone." James, stop calling. James, I see it to you because I see your WhatsApp picture. Stop calling. Stop calling, James. I'm reading your text. Stop calling. Okay. It says, "Hello, I'm James Kanyaku from Sierra Leone. I'm really enjoying your program. I want to make a call so you can hear my take. Unfortunately, James, we can't pick your call because our time is up. We have just 1 minute. 1 minute to end, and I can't pick your call on WhatsApp. So hopefully you can call in another time when we perhaps expand on this issue further." Lawyer.
Yeah.
Final takes on impact.
Well, he is better positioned to talk about the impact, and I think he has dealt with that very well. So I'd rather just resort.
But do you appreciate that it has grave consequences?
Yes, of course,
women?
of course. Yeah, they get traumatized so much, and they get reserved, and all that he has said. I think
because
so.
Imagine going through life having trust issues. And your perpetrator being somebody who was so close to you, and just going through life not trusting people. Imagine a kind of life, and not being able to say it. Walking around with a deep, dark secret.
No justice.
And you know what?
No justice as well.
I think there has to be a conscious effort to create the environment for them to be able to come out and speak about it. You get better, you feel better if you're able to speak about the ordeals and instead of keeping it all to yourself and getting so reserved and solitude. I don't think so. So I think that's what is happening. The Me Too movement is all about that, and they have to say, "Me Too, it happened to me," and
let's come out and speak about it.
I'll probably give a little plug here that one of the because our group, CASA, is a coalition, and one of the groups, the members of our group, is owner of a place called A Safe Space, which is specifically about women who have gone through these situations, can talk about it. And it's something that we need to do in general, creating safe spaces so that people can talk about what they are going through. And among other women and people who are actually understanding about it. Because otherwise you go through your whole life feeling isolated because society doesn't care about the traumatic experience you've gone through.
Great. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Very grateful that you made time to be here today. Well, thank you, my co-presenters on the show, you viewers, of course, for sending in your messages and your texts, and also for calling in. And actually, thank you for just watching. We've started a conversation. Hopefully, you continue this conversation at home. As a people, let's all agree that no means no. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.